The Blues have an NHL-looking lineup. I feel very confident about this team, and I'm going to talk about why I think so coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And a happy Thursday, October 3rd. On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was. Well, it is Blues Day because they are playing the Dallas Stars. Anyways, I am going to talk to you about this lineup going into tonight's contest because I think it is a very good lineup, and I'm going to talk about some of tonight's contests. Anywho, the NHL expanding, thoughts on that, and of course, Captain BRAYDEN Schenn. I kind of want to talk about something more just throughout the whole entire league in today's episode. I know this is a Blues podcast, but obviously something like this would impact the St. Louis Blues, so I figured, why not loop it in? It's something that I have interest in. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, one thing that I really like that the St. Louis Blues did is readjusting. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hale, how can they possibly in any single way readjust after that Columbus game? Well, luckily there is something called lines can change. And tonight the starters were Texier, Bush, Cairo, Letty Pareko, and Binner. And I really did like that one. Here's the thing, St. Louis, right? I thought the starters solid. I'll take that as it is. However, I do want to say that the last game you still had some AHL players. So it wasn't like 100% fair for me to be as hard as maybe I was. However, I just wasn't so impressed with what I saw. Anyways, I want to talk more about the lines. I want to talk more about what I like, what I don't like about it. And so this is the lines. Ready? We have Holloway, Thomas, Neighbors, Texier, Bush, Cairo, Matthew, Joseph, Schenn, Kapanen. Yes, Schenn back in center. Torpo, Foxa, and Walker. On defense, we have Letty Pareko, Broberg, Folk, and then Suter and Kessel. I have to tell you guys something really embarrassing too, by the way. So I was at work today at my radio station, and I was talking about Phil Kessel because he ate hot dogs out of the Stanley Cup. I know, completely random. Well, we all know how the Blues have just completely invaded my life. So I said Matthew Kessel. Everybody was like, who's that? And I'm like, oh, Ron Kessel. This is Matthew Kessel, a defenseman of the St. Louis Blues. And I think everyone thought I was crazy. But yeah, anyways, that was my Matthew Kessel thing of the day. So I want to touch on these lines again because I really do think that these could be the lines that we see against Seattle. So if you told me that Mr. Dylan Holloway would be in the first line, I don't know if I would believe you heading into the season. Um, Obviously you don't see Bolduc. There's a couple guys that you don't see. Without Bolduc, you could always have him replace Joseph, Torpa. There's a lot of different combos, but I feel like this is actually a combination of players I feel confident with. I would like to see Zach Bolduc, but at the same time, I could see where they could put him in. So, anyways, the first line that we have is Holloway, Thomas, Neighbors. I like this one a lot. You're switching Jakey from left to right, which is fine with me. Thomas, obviously, he's going to be your first line center, guaranteed to lock it in. Like, that's one thing that's never going to change is RT being your first line center. I do like Holloway next to Thomas a lot, and I like Jake Neighbors. I feel like Thomas and Neighbors have a lot of chemistry. Neighbors isn't afraid to shoot the puck. And I'm not saying that Robert Thomas is, but Robert Thomas is one of those guys that would kind of rather set up a play than just take the shot. So I feel like that balances out. And we all saw how Dylan Holloway has been so far during camp. He's been on fire. So I like that. Then in the second line, you have Texier, Bush, and Cairo. I said it before. They really want to try Bushy out as a center, which is fine. I mean, he can play the position well. At the end of last season, he looked great doing so. Obviously, Kyrie's a top 6 forward, so you're not gonna have him any lower, and you're not gonna, put him in the third line or below. He's too talented for that. And Texier, I mean, again, this is another guy that I would never put in the second line, just if I was making a prediction. However, I could still see him being on the third line at least. I could see Holloway being where Texier is and then maybe putting Texier in the third line and replace Joseph. But again, I don't make the decisions. Matt had a goal tonight, so congratulations. Suter, I think he had one, but it was goalie interference. I'll get into that whole rant in a second. Then in the third line, you have Joseph, Shenny, and Kapanen. So here's the thing. Captain BRAYDEN Schenn, I never thought I was going to see him back in that center position just because they were kind of set on having him in a wing position. Now, personally, and I have a whole segment on BRAYDEN Schenn because of this whole thing, so I'm going to touch on it. Essentially, I have some thoughts and feelings about that one. Then the fourth line is Torprochenko, Foxa, and Walker. Not a combination that I would kind of put out, to be honest with you. But it works in a really weird way. Like it really does work, and all the players do balance each other out. I mean, I'm a huge Nathan Walker fan, as we know. Um, and even tonight's game, you saw Fox kind of getting in it with Matt Dumba, and Walker came right over. So I kind of do like that line. Like that's kind of growing on me. Wherever you have Nathan Walker, it doesn't matter where he plays, he's going to contribute in some way. He's a very hard worker on the ice. Then defensively, if we're looking at pairings, you have Big Fish Nicoletti because Nicoletti caught a really big fish this summer. So that's my kind of nickname for him in my head. But you have Nicoletti and Pareka, which obviously was going to happen. I mean, Colton wasn't moving. And I do think Letty balances him out a lot. So I like that as a first pair lock that in full send. Let's go. I said heading into the season that Philip Broberg would probably be on the second pair, and they have Broberg and Justin Folk, which I do like a lot. Again, balances each other out. And Philip scored tonight too. So congratulations, Broberg. And then we have Suter and Kessel. Matthew Kessel is one of those players that was so impressive at the end of last season. And I know there's, all the talk of, okay, well, who's going to replace Torrey Krug on the power play? And Scott Perunovich's name got mentioned. However, at the same time, Coach Bannister, Doug Armstrong, they were very upfront. They were very honest. He needs to perform well in camp for him to be able to get that spot. Now, listen, I know Ryan Suter isn't going to get, Kapanen just scored. Neil, it's a 3-1 lead. Let's go. I'll get into why I can't watch it right now. Um, but yeah, so essentially with Suter, you know that he's not going to be playing maybe almost every game, not as many minutes. So that's an opportunity for Perunovich, Tyler Tucker even to be called up. I'm a fan of Doug Armstrong. I'm a fan of Drew Bannister holding this team accountable when it comes to being rewarded positions. I think that at the end of the day, this is a tougher team to make than previous seasons, so you got to play well. And of course, in net is Jordan Bennington with Joel Hofer backing him up. So, as I said, you pretty much have an NHL roster. I mean, the roster that I just read you tonight with the lines, I mean, throughout the season, you never know. Like maybe a player like Ball Duke, has like a lower body injury. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, but you know what I'm saying? So this very well could be an NHL looking roster. I mean, it is essentially. I mean, all these guys, have played in the NHL. So therefore it's an NHL roster, but I do really like that first line a lot. I really am a fan of having Holloway up there with Thomas and Neighbors. I'm telling you, that third line is special. So Joseph scored tonight, Kapanen scored tonight. I'm just saying, you put Captain BRAYDEN Schenn back in that center position and good things happen. I also think I'm the biggest Captain BRAYDEN Schenn fan. Obviously, it's Robert Thomas season, my friends. However, I'm also a huge Shenny fan. So happy for Cappy. That was a great goal. And Wow. That third line, man. That's crazy. All right. I'm going to tell you why I am frustrated. I'm going to also tell you about some NHL expansion news-ish kind of thing. We have a lot to get into today, okay? Listen, that's how today's episode's going to be. But I'm going to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get over $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. We all know how much I love FanDuel, and I tell you all the time. And by the way, my friends, I told you, I just want to say it, I told you so. Right now it is third quarter. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are up 24-17 against the Atlanta Falcons. Who told you to bet on the Bucs the whole time? And who said if you get nervous and you don't do it before the game to just do it as the game's going on because FanDuel allows you to do that? Me. So, of course, I'm going to be a friend, okay? I'm going to be a friend to you because it's week 5. You may not see this episode until tomorrow, whatever, on Sunday, because we're all about making you money here on FanDuel. The Jets visit the Vikings. However, I do think that the Jets, 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 they're going to be in London. So it's the London game, so 9:30, 9:20-ish a.m. So for us, it will be about 8 a.m. I would bet on the Jets. And if you don't want to do it before the game, just do it right in the middle of the game. Make some money still. Make some money on your Sunday morning, not Saturday, Sunday morning. Money, football, FanDuel. I'm going to talk about the NHL expanding, potentially. However, this preseason has been one of the most infuriating times of my life. Okay? Let me explain. It's preseason, Blues and Stars. The Blues are at home. Well, I don't live in St. Louis. I know, right? You had no idea. Yeah, no, I don't live in St. Louis. But the team that I'm a fan of is the St. Louis Blues. So you might be wondering, Hale, how do you watch the games during the regular season? Well, to answer that, I buy ESPN Plus and I buy all the streaming services because I am absolutely insane. And I spend a lot of money on my streaming services. But I'll listen to the flagship at ESPN on the app and, I'll still do all that. But, I like to watch the games, right? So I have a VPN, but the VPN only connects to bigger cities. Doesn't connect to St. Louis because why would it? So I'm connected to Dallas. Dallas is a big city. Connect me to Dallas. And I'm watching this Dallas broadcast. One of the worst things I've ever had to watch because one, I am not a Dallas Stars fan. And it was all about the Dallas Stars and obviously just conversations about their season ahead. If I was a Stars fan, I'm sure I would love it. I'm sure if the Blues had something like that, I'm sure I would love it. It has nothing to do with the broadcasters. It has nothing to do with any of those talents, right? What it has to do with is I am trying to watch my hockey team play. I don't need to hear about how great Jake Ottinger is and Casey DeSmith and Dumba and Jamie Benn. Thanks for telling me. However, I just wanted to watch the game and I don't care about what they did in the off season. I don't care about their personal lives. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't care. So I went onto this illegal website to try to watch the Blues game. And then my server quickly realized that, hey, this is an illegal website. And then they blocked it after the second period. So, yeah, that's my life. And I'm like, I'm just going to do this podcast because I saw what I needed to see in this game so far to kind of make some points. But a point of discussion I've really been wanting to kind of just discuss is something that happened with, well, a potential expansion, right? So here's the thing. Gary Bettman, commissioner of the NHL. I don't talk a lot about national moves as much. He basically was saying, yeah, this past season, the NHL, most successful season, talking about all their huge accomplishments and all of that, right? Mentions expansion. Alan Walsh, he's a sports agent, and he said some things about a potential expansion with an expansion fee of $2 billion per team. So I feel like that is quite a lot. He went on Twitter at Walsh and said, "Can't do expansion at $2 billion per team." Then claimed empty pockets going into CBA talks. Gary will prioritize the new CBA and then drop a $4 billion expansion fee on the owners. Lots of expansion activity going on behind the scenes. So I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. Bettman expects, the league to kind of make more money and, things like that, right? And then I was thinking about something. Bettman basically says that the increased salary cap from 88.5 million this season to 92.5 million next season. So again, numbers going up, which is why again the contract that we had for Boosh this summer, the extension, it's not going to be as bad with the cap going up, right? The current CBA is set to expire in the summer 2026, with negotiations anticipated to start around January 1st of 2025. So this coming January, okay? So here's the thing. No discussions on NHL expansion occurring during the Board of Governors meeting. The Ottawa Senators ownership stake purchase and the Tampa Bay Lightnings were approved. Columbus Blue Jackets were permitted to remain below the salary cap floor until October 7th. So just some NHL things just right. So here's the thing. Who will these expansion teams be? I have an idea of teams. Well, I've always said Milwaukee, right? I've always said, potential Milwaukee team would be kind of nice, right? But I know that's not going to happen. So let's continue on about what I think is going to actually happen, because it is kind of an interesting thing if they go to 34 teams instead of 32, right? So whenever I think of expansion, I think of, well, Atlanta, okay? Um, I've said this before and I will say it again. I always think of Atlanta. So that could be one. Houston could be another one, which would be interesting because that would maybe fit into the Central Division. And you would have to maybe move some teams around, but I always thought Houston could be one. Let's go see. What else do I have? Quebec City. That'd be an interesting run, right? I mean, the Nordiques, and then they moved to Denver, 95, whole thing. But that could be another one. Oklahoma, I'm like, I don't know. Now, there is always like the possibility of maybe Toronto because it's such a big hockey town having another expansion team. But the two cities, and I know I named a couple. No, those are the ones. I said Milwaukee. I said the ones that I thought potentially. However, the two cities, and again, this is from Alan Walsh, he revealed that Houston and Atlanta are the top contenders to land new NHL teams. So why am I bringing this up to you on Locked On Blues, right? This is a Blues podcast and I'm ranting about expansion teams. Well, it's going to shake up the division. It's going to shake up the league and there's more competition to hoist that Stanley Cup. So I don't know if I'm a fan of it. I feel bad for Atlanta just because, the Flames didn't work out and then the Thrashers, bad management and ownership. So I believe that there is life for hockey in Atlanta, but you have to bring in a team in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. So that's why Houston would make sense, even though I think Milwaukee, but I think Houston could also make sense because Dallas is so big. So I could see that. And maybe that'd be in the Central Division and you have to shake up some things, but why not, why not talk about this? I like talking national things with you guys. Also, I want to let you know to make sure to hit that subscribe button down below that we can stay up to date with all the Blues information. My cat Stella, she is the biggest Blues fan, and she was watching the game with me tonight, and she tells you to subscribe. So if you want to see more of Stella Gray, big Blues fan, because when the Blues come marching in. If you can't see, if you're listening, my cat was lurking while doing this episode. She really does love the Blues. So yeah, I'm using my cat as a reason to subscribe to my channel. So let's go talk about Captain Brayden Schenn, because Brayden Schenn, oh my goodness, Captain Brayden Schenn. So I would never imagine him being back in the center position. Not because I didn't like him there, but I knew that Bushi was going to be taking that second line center. So I was like, oh, we're going to have Brayden Schenn. And I am proud of Brayden Schenn. On that Matthew Joseph goal, with about half the time remaining in the second period, he was assisted by Kapanen and Captain Brayden Schenn. And Brayden Schenn really kept that puck back in possession, and it was just great feedback. So I really like that so far, right? It's one of those things where Brayden Schenn, sure, say what you want about him, but he's having a good game tonight. And I am very impressed with how he is. I'm impressed with his speed, his passing of the pucks. Like, it just looks like he's back to himself. And, like, not like he was ever not himself, but I feel like at times last season, we saw burst of moments, like when he had the hat trick, right? We saw burst of moments where he played fantastic hockey. And then we saw him kind of take a back seat, and we said, okay, what is our captain doing? So I am impressed by how he's playing tonight. And I want to ask you a question. Do you feel like Captain Brayden Schenn being the third line center is the best possible position for him this upcoming season? Or do you look at this and think, maybe he is suited somewhere else? I personally love him playing that center position. And I know this might be another thing. I know it's like maybe familiarity in general, right? But I just feel like this is where he was meant to be. And if something's good, don't change it. I don't think having him, in the wing positions would have been harmful, right? I wouldn't blink twice for a second. But I do think this is a very beneficial position for Brayden Schenn. I feel like he is expanding a lot, and I'm just really happy with how he's playing. Like, so this is actually very good. The Stars have an empty net right now, which is so nice because the Stars is the last preseason game, and they're undefeated in preseason. And if the Blues win, then they beat the Stars from being undefeated. So that's a plus. All right. Today was a fun episode, a little ranty. I wasn't feeling the best today, so I do apologize. It was later. I was going to do a post, if I can speak. I was going to do a post-game show. Couldn't watch the rest, so I'm like, I'm just going to film this, get some topics off my chest, and then tomorrow I'm going to react to the entirety of the game because I'm going to be able to get some clips to watch back with my media stuff that I get from the Blues. And we'll prepare for our final preseason game in Chicago. 5 days until we begin the regular season out in Seattle. So it's happening. Whether you like it or not, buckle up, baby. The season is about to begin. I'll talk to you next time. And like always, let's go Blues.